These dropping temperatures and leaves are an indicator of something that we all know and love. The answer, and all of its 100,000 seats, is right behind me. That's right, it's football season. The first half of the season here in State College has been both good and bad for those in the stands. The Nittany Lions' first 2 home games has featured favorable conditions, but the most recent matchups against Iowa and UMass weren't as lucky. Taking a deeper dive into the inclement games, how much of an impact does poor weather have on sports? For starters, though, the upkeep of any high-level field can take hours of research into the weather and is one of the most important variables in a groundskeeper's job.
It's a year-round process, which includes turfgrass health, turfgrass nutrition, air and water management. They need to be in tune with what's going on with the weather. Each day, one of the first things that a turfgrass manager is going to look is they're going to look on their phones or on an app or whatever and find out what the weather conditions are. All of those different types of things then make a huge impact on how they plan a project or plan daily maintenance activities based on what's going on with the weather. It's one of the biggest influencers that they actually have.
When precipitation does factor into sporting events, its impacts are sure to be felt. In the past 4 years, Penn State's 5 rain games combined to an average total score of 31.4 points, well below the average of 61 in a game. The same conclusions can be drawn for an NFL game as well. Completion percentage in passes drops due to the slippery conditions in footballs, and the frequency of run plays increase.
Rain impacts it in a number of different ways. It can change aspects of footing. It can also then increase compaction depending on how the field is. Most of the fields these days are designed to have infiltration rates or percolation rates of, let's say, up to 15 inches of rain per hour. Sometimes that works. Sometimes, depending on how the rain is coming down, it may impact the fields a little bit differently. And so what can happen with those is that depending on the type of grass that you have, could make the field a little bit more slick or not.
Snow is another type of precipitation that causes lots of trouble in the world of sports. Joe Paterno's final game and record 409th college football win was played in an early season snowstorm against Illinois back in 2011. Nittany Lions quarterback Matt McGloin threw for just 9 completions and an interception. However, an Illinois missed field goal to tie the game late concluded a 10-7 slugfest in favor of the home team. With snow, the option of passing goes down tremendously, and the amount of yards picked up on the ground skyrockets. Because runs on average use more time on the game clock, this leads to less plays, which in turn leads to less points. Snow's intriguing factor is that its wrath isn't the same at all venues. Modern stadiums in cold climates contain heating systems located beneath the field, which can melt the accumulation quickly. Though snow or not, the field will still be covered in water, leading to poor playing conditions anyway.
Depending on if the field has a heating system and it melts, or if it just stays as actual snow itself, you may have a double effect depending on, like I said, whether they have a heating system underneath. If they don't, then the snow and the cold temperatures then work together where it'll start to cause the field to freeze or harden up in addition to the snow itself. So then the snow then can also then impact as far as footing, a little bit more mixed conditions, a little bit more slick.
To start the season, many football games can be played in oppressive heat. A 2016 game against the universities of Pittsburgh and North Carolina kicked off at a sweltering 92 degrees, eventually won by North Carolina by the slimmest of margins, a 1-point victory. Some games down south eclipsed that mark too. The Dallas Cowboys' home opening game against Philadelphia in 2000 reached a mind-boggling 109 degrees. When the heat takes its toll on athletes and coaches, risk of fatigue and dehydration skyrocket. There are several effects on the grass itself that can cause adverse conditions as well.
So then all of a sudden that can drive it the other direction, where you can also then have turf that actually then starts to wilt. The grass blades will then start to dry out, and so then they lose, when they desiccate, then they're also going to lose some of their springiness, and that can also then have an impact on that. And that's where then field managers then, if they've got heat or drought coming into the area, they will then try to water those grasses as best they can.
In addition to rain, snow, and heat, wind can be a major factor into the game. High winds can cause passes to be thrown errantly and also contributes to a lower field goal percentage from kickers. This in turn causes teams to stay on the ground and rush the ball at a higher rate, and to be more aggressive on fourth down calls in field goal range. Overall, there lies a noticeable trend in contests with poor weather. Games tend to score less points and become more physical, with frequent runs and less opportunities for explosive plays. If you do end up going to a game like that, make sure to bring a rain jacket but also expect a chippy physical affair. Heading into the second half of football season across our state, our teams have some big games to play. Penn State faces Michigan to open up November, and both the Eagles and Steelers face off against tough conference competition at home. For all those games, you can only hope the weather stays settled and keep all the adverse effects off the gridiron. For Weather World, I'm Gavin Sandel.